All right, welcome back Under the Rug, folks. Today I actually had a plan for a different show, but unfortunately, one of my guests couldn't make it due to personal reasons, and I really wanted him to make it because I like balance. And what I wanted to discuss today was youth involvement in politics, and so I wanted to invite a person that's people that are supporters of both major parties. And like I said, the PLP end of this discussion was unable to make it. But my good friend, Stephen Cartwright, has taken the time out of his busy schedule to be here and have this nice discussion with us. So it'll just be us today. So we're still going to dive into youth involvement in politics, because what I don't get or personally understand is, and like I explained, a bit earlier off mic, I kind of understand the older citizens' ties to political parties, the hardcore, die-hard ties, especially when it comes to the PLP party, because they have lived through a lot of the segregation and the race relations, and they see Sir Lyndon Pinlin and the PLP party as sort of the Moses that brought them to the promised land of independence and through that tough time of segregation and discrimination. So I kind of understand why a lot of the older folks would maintain that loyal tie to their PLP party. But what I do not quite understand is a younger person that's, let's say, 30 years or younger. I could even say 35 or younger, because the country is only, 43 years old. So anyone 35 or younger that has like a hardcore, die-hard tie to a particular political party, I don't completely get it. So I really wanted to have the discussion and ask people that have aligned themselves with political parties and done a lot of work with political parties, like, what is that thing that's keeping them tied to this political party, and what's their agenda for the country and working with the party. So, Stephen, if you could explain to me, and I think it's safe to say that you are a supporter of the F&M party. Am I correct in saying that?
Historically, yes, you'd be correct.
Okay.
I would like to clarify a couple of your
Go ahead,
assumptions.
right ahead. Go ahead, brother.
I think it'd be better suited to say that first and foremost, I can't speak for everyone else, but I consider myself a Bahamian.
Right.
And when I chose who to support in 2012, it was because I recognized, in my opinion, where the country was and where we had to go. And I believed, honestly, that the Free National Movement at that time was the best party to keep moving us forward. Some serious infrastructural upgrades were needed, and they were taking the necessary time to do it. When the recession hit, the F&M not only took pay cuts so that more money could be directed to the Treasury, and so that work could keep on going, they still maintained the infrastructural upgrades that were needed. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. The PLP, had I been around when they were first formed, I more than likely would have been a supporter of the PLP. You look at what they originally stood up for and what they did, I believe, based on what I know about myself, I would have been more aligned with their way of thinking and their philosophies. Both parties now, though, in my opinion, have to come again. And they need to prove to myself and those who I believe think like me why they really should be given a chance at this next go-round. It's not to dog anyone. It's just the reality. I know where I would like to see my country go. I know what I would like for my children and for myself. And right now, I don't have confidence or overwhelming confidence in anyone at this point. And I think a lot of people would share that, if I'm to be honest. Now, I don't believe in saying less of two evils. I don't believe in saying stick with someone just because. In 2012, I supported them. I'm active, like you said, in the F&M. I still am. I'm in the Montague constituency. And I do plan to support, if this current MP runs again, I do plan to support him because I know what he's done in the community. I know what kind of man he really is, despite what you may be hearing out there. But at this point, there's still some more that needs to be done from both sides before I really make up my mind.
Okay, so you kind of undecided at this point. You haven't completely made your mind up.
Undecided to agree. I think Dr. Minnis is going to have to really try hard to unify the F&M after what we just went through. The PLP has to really hit some reset buttons, to put it mildly, to gain any kind of traction or trust with a lot of people beyond their grassroots
Think so?
movement.
Think so?
I'm thinking once again, I'm speaking from my age bracket, or from who I think people who've been off to school maybe, or who are starting to question things. And I'm not speaking about the party loyal faithful. I'm thinking about people who are like, listen,
the new voters.
Yeah, there's a lot of new voters out there that are saying, what are you really going to do for this country?
Right.
And some may even be saying, what are you doing for me? And I think persons are looking to both sides now to say, where are we going to go from here?
Okay, because see, I have, and anybody that knows me, I have the view that both parties have now gone off of, maybe initially when these parties were created, I'm sure that what they wanted to do was right and good for the country. But where both of them are at this juncture, I don't think that they are on that track that they set out to be on when they first established these parties. I think they have both lost their way, and what I see are basically two gangs that are only concerned with winning elections and maintaining power. And it is not about the people anymore. It's not about the people, the electorate. It's all about competition. I think our biggest issue in this country is that we have injected competition into politics. And now it's all about winning for the parties. They don't care about the people, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but this is, like you said, you were speaking from your perspective, your vantage point. This is from my vantage point, what I've seen, and I judge based off of actions, not rhetoric. So, because, like you say, mouth could say anything. As a famous Bahamian saying, mouth could say anything. But I judge off of action. And from what I've seen, they only are concerned with winning elections. So I'm wondering, do you feel the same way? And I'm trying to figure out if the young people that support these parties, if they're just going off of that initial, what they wanted to establish initially when these parties came about, and that ideal of, creating a better country, and if they are, aware, or do they feel the same way when it comes to where the parties are going right now? If they feel as though they are on track with the original vision, or if they are off the rails, and if they feel they are off the rails, why do they continue to support? Do you feel as though your party is on track with building a better Bahamas, or do you think that they have lost their way as of late?
Let's backtrack first. I'm being asked to speak up louder, so I'll speak a little louder.
Okay. Well, they're probably watching on Facebook on their phone, so they probably can't hear on that.
I got you. Okay. Yeah. All right. No, I never knew Sir Lyndon. I did not have a personal relationship with him or any of the dissident members that left the PLP. At that time, it formed the FNM. I don't know Sir Cecil. I don't know Sir Kendall, any of them. So I don't believe, in a position to say exactly where their heads were at. I can only go off of history. And depends on who you ask in this country what version of history you're going to get, unfortunately.
Right.
Thankfully, there are some really honest people that I trust, and so I go to. And I would say that if you listen to the member for, I think it's West Grand Bahama, West End today, Obi Wills come in the House today, he was saying that the PLP has always had the philosophy for the little man. That's why they started national insurance.
And that's what my other guest that was supposed to be on the podcast, he says that, he holds firm as a PLP because he believes in that same, that the PLP was for the small man. And
I have family members who would still support the PLP. Historically, they've supported them, and they will still support them because that perception is still what they hold on to. Do I have serious problems with the way they governed? Absolutely. Do I have serious problems with the way a lot of their members have conducted themselves? Absolutely. I mean, I can only think about Tall Pines and some of the comments that he's made. Absolutely distasteful.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. To come to the Bahamian people and ask us what we thought about something and then to completely go against what we told you, I think is also not the best way to govern a society. But who am I,
Yeah.
I think you and I are still relative outsiders. For all of my involvement, we have never had the opportunity to govern a country or to sit in cabinet and to meet individuals who are trying to shape this country for whatever intentions. I can't speak to Perry's heart. I can't speak to Minister's heart. I can only go off of what I see in public and what I see from the outside. And from where I'm sitting as well, I'm starting to get confused. This is where you say you would like to be. This is where you say the country ought to be. But your actions have not necessarily translated to that.
Exactly.
And I'm speaking to both sides.
Right.
Maybe I'm wrong. But it's your job as an elected official who serves the people to not only prove to me, but also to perform for me.
Exactly.
You know, you're not there to do things in secret or in dark.
Right.
We should have for you yesterday, last year, 20 years ago, we should have had it. We should know where every single penny you take from us goes.
I
You know?
agree.
So there's a lot of things that I'm frustrated with. At the same time, because of my involvement, not necessarily with the FNM, but with I have relationships with people in government, other countries as well. And once you start working your way up, I guess is the best way to put it, you become very aware of how difficult it is to execute everything you would like to. Which to me speaks more to maybe you shouldn't promise so much before you get in there. You know, be more honest. At the same time, campaigns are that's what they are. It's a campaign.
That's what they've. I think it's gotten that way because when it started to become this big competition, they started to realize that it was pretty easy to sell people dreams. And people would usually buy these dreams. So they just started selling these big dreams. And what you said is quite important, that you shouldn't be making these big promises. And what I liken it to, it's like, let's say you have your car can't start or your car doesn't start. If you tell your mechanic, well, listen, my car ain't starting, he cannot really tell you exactly what's wrong until he gets under the hood and does his inspection and looks at the car. So someone outside of government that is not looking at everything, how can they tell you exactly what they're going to do when they're not really looking at all of the issues from the inside? So this is why I don't understand why not only they continue to make these big promises, but people continue to buy these promises, because you cannot, it's almost impossible for you to tell me this is the exact plan and this is how we're going to do it when you are not looking under the hood. You understand? Like that's an issue for me.
The only difference there, I would say, is that at least with the opposition, and I may be wrong in my understanding of this, there are shadow ministers that do shadow different ministries, and to at least some degree, they should have an idea of what's going on in there.
Some idea, but I mean,
now, do they have all the intricate knowledge?
Right.
Probably not.
Right.
But at the same, like I said, I've never been in their position, so I don't know. And maybe there are things that are kept from them as well.
Right.
You know, we just don't know. We don't have that access to information in this country, so a lot of us are left in the dark. And so I agree. I think the promises that are made on the campaign trail, Bahamians are the ones at that point, I think, that need to become more aware and say, listen, just because I'm being promised X, Y, Z doesn't mean it's actually going to come about. And not just because they may not get elected. Even if they do get elected, doesn't mean it's actually going to happen, because who knows what condition they're going to find the Treasury in. Who knows what agreements were actually signed before they left office and before this new government came in. Who knows what may happen internationally.
Right.
Venezuela is in an uproar right now. In 2007 and 8, when the FNM began their major infrastructural upgrades, we had a terrible depression that hit, recession that hit. And you have to then reevaluate a lot of the things you wanted to accomplish. And so I think that more honesty definitely needs to come about. And that may sound ridiculous when you're saying politicians need to be more honest. But there's a generation coming up who is not that we're morally or ethically better, but we are sick of the lies. And we are sick of the dishonesty. We're sick of the non-transparency. And we're saying, if you don't do better, something's got to give. And whether that's a new party, whether that's a new movement, whether that's another Burma Road, I mean, who knows? We are getting angry. And the angrier people get, the more you're going to see it manifested.
Right.
That audio that came out, that's a joke compared to what potentially could happen in this country if these politicians on both sides don't get serious.
And of course, you're referring to the song about the Prime Minister. Correct?
Yeah. And I don't condone that song. I thought it was disgusting.
Yeah,
I
thought
think that
so
whoever did it in bad taste. But it speaks to
the frustration.
Deep-rooted frustration, anger. You don't know where they were coming from with that beyond they wanted to lash out, and that was their avenue.
Now, what I'm getting from you is, you're not really, based off what I've heard you say thus far, I wouldn't consider you to be the diehard, I was born a FNM, I could die FNM type. That's not what I'm getting from you.
No.
And it's interesting because I thought you were more along that line before, we started to speak, but it seems as though you do have the country is number one to you. It's just that it seems as though you felt that the FNM party was the best option to get it onto that path. So how did you first get involved with the F&M party? What was initial? Was it because most people, you know what it is? My daddy was F&M, Ma was F&M. They always vote F&M. We celebrate when F&M win. I come up under that, so I just, naturally became an F&M. How did you become involved with the party? And what has kept you there?
Well, there's two things. I'd say first what got me involved in politics. I actually went off to Bible school. I did 1 year of Bible school at Word of Life Bible Institute.
Okay.
And then I did 3 years at Liberty University. I have not completed, but I studied for a double major in world religion and philosophy of religion.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
I love people.
Okay.
I came back and I worked for 5 years at a Christian sports camp in Eleuthera called Camp Bahamas, where when I left, I was the assistant sports director. My interest for the development of this country lies with educating young people about the opportunities. I began to recognize that if we want to make serious changes in this country, we had to empower the next generation. My parents, as much as I love them, your parents, your grandparents, that generation, not that they must be given up on, but for all intents and purposes, their time is just about done, They may have 20, 30, 40 more years, but they're concerned now about paying off the rest of their mortgage, retirement, and doing something for them. They've given already. The young people coming up don't share the ideologies that our grandparents may have had about development and national development.
Right.
They don't even have a sense of national pride, by and large. And a lot of that is stemming from they're not aware of what they have in this country. They're not aware of who they are as a people. We're taught to hate Haitians. We're taught to hate blacks. We're taught to hate whites.
Or hate anybody that doesn't subscribe to our beliefs or ideologies.
Exactly. Forgetting that it took many ethnicities, many people groups to make this country great.
Yes.
So Lyndon, his lineage is Jamaican.
Right.
The first black man in the House of Assembly, Stephen DeLitt, his lineage was Haitian.
Right.
We've had Haitians involved in the making and shaping of this country for over 200 years. And it's like we're afraid to say it. And I'm from Long Island. Right. You can't find none of them there. All right. So we need to get serious in this country and be honest about who we are as a people first. And so I took a seat back and I said, listen, what I learned in school, I'm not hearing a lot of it here in the Bahamas. I'm hearing a different kind of Christianity. I'm hearing a Christianity where it's rules and regulations first and foremost, and if you don't comply, then maybe your faith just isn't good enough, or your dollar ain't just good enough, or your attire isn't good enough. And don't get me wrong, there's some really, really good, serious men and women of God in this country who are actively trying to impact positively the direction of this country.
But generally speaking,
I got very frustrated with what I took time. I would say over the 5 years I was with Camp Bahamas, we visited every denomination in this country. I've been to the Rasta Church. I've been to the mosque. I've been to every denomination represented on this island and even some of the family islands, for the sole purpose of getting to the bottom of who we are as a people.
Okay.
And one of the biggest things I recognize is a lot of Nasuvians, to be more specific, don't know about Exuma. They might have grandparents from there. They don't know about Ragged Island. They don't know about Cat Island.
Now, when you say they don't know about these places, what exactly do you mean?
They don't know about the resources we have there. They don't know about the beauty. They don't know about what it is about this country that keeps people coming back and spending thousands upon thousands of dollars just to see our oolite sand, or just to see our swimming pigs. Or
okay, so basically they're not aware of the resources or the potential that lies
or the potential that lies in this country for young Bahamians. They're not aware that there's a yachting industry that pays people crazy money for doing the same things they do at the hotel for little money, and for minimal training.
Right.
You go get an STCW course and pass it right here, which is available in Nassau as a high school student.
And it used to be about $250, which isn't much. I don't know how much it is now.
It's a little more than that. It's like $1,500 now because they have more requirements. Woo. But there's people that are going to work with you.
Right.
I'm not going to name drop, but there are some really good people that are Coast Guard certified in the Bahamas that will work with you. And once you pass that certification and you go work on these boats, your starting salary for the most part is going to be upwards of $800 a week, easily, for folding towels and cleaning a boat. And you get to see the Bahamas, or you get to see the world, depending on where you work. Oil tankers, oil rigs, same thing. A lot of opportunities that Bahamians are not being pushed towards, or they're just not aware. And so I said, listen, there's two ways to make differences in this country. Either you're going to become a priest or a pastor and open up a church and start working like Great Commission, or you're going to get involved in politics. Because
you think it's only those two ways?
Those are what I saw.
Okay.
What I see is that people either subscribe to their church or they subscribe to their political organization.
Okay.
And very many Bahamians subscribe to both. Whatever their pastors say is how they vote, or whatever their MP say is how they conduct themselves or their households accordingly. And so I said, listen, if we want to start changing the mindset, we need to start getting serious people involved in governance. Doesn't necessarily mean you don't have to be F&M, PLP, or DNA or anything, but get involved.
Okay.
And so in 2000, I want to say 2, my uncle ran as an independent. I could have my year wrong. He ran as an independent in Long Island and won. And then he joined the F&M. That's when I really began to seriously take a look at the Free National Movement. It wasn't any time before then. Actually, it was before 2002 he got in. And I began to read up on what they believed in, what their goals were, and I aligned. I remember in '92 when the F&M won and my dad ran outside the house blowing his horn, because that was for him a huge win. I couldn't relate to that. I was, 5 or 6? So it's memories like that I guess led me to be more pro F&M.
Right.
And when I began to read up on what they believed in and what they felt was the right way for the country, I agreed a lot with what they had to say. We need foreign investment for some of our development, not necessarily all of it. I believe that opportunities like the farm we had in Eleuthera up in Hatchet Bay, that a lot of Bahamians directly attribute to the PLP for failing it, whether it's right or wrong, whatever you want to say. At one point, this country exported dairy products, meat, pineapples, onions, everything from Eleuthera, and we were a major world competitor, and we fed ourselves.
See now,
9 miles of farm in Eleuthera.
I don't wanna cut your train of thought or where you were going, but I think you touched on some very, very important things just now, and one of which was that you said you was specializing in, educating the youth about opportunities and stuff like that. And what I get from you right now is it seems as though you're a bit jaded and your view has maybe changed from when you first came back to this country and the opportunities, and I guess you were excited and vibrant and wanted to just share this knowledge and all these opportunities with the youth. And now I'm getting, maybe as it was you going through the process and going through some, rough situations and realizing that things don't work the way they probably should. And now I think it sounds as though your perspective has changed a little. I could be wrong. Is your perspective now when it comes to the opportunities that exist in the country, is it still the same as it was when you first came back to this country? Do you still see those same opportunities, and are you as excited about seeing those opportunities come to fruition or reality?
Yeah, I'm definitely still very excited. I think the only thing that changed was I realized you had to be smarter about your approach.
Okay. More strategic.
You have to be more strategic, and you have to play a longer game. You're not going to fix this country overnight.
Right.
You're not going to fix this country with just one generation of young people.
And also, do you still feel that it either has to be through your MP or politics or through the church? Do you still feel like those are the two avenues that...
I think you may have misunderstood me.
Okay.
I felt that for me personally, to have a major impact, I had to choose one of those two routes.
Or maybe you thought that was the more expedient...
Definitely more experience, especially, and out of the two, I chose politics.
Okay.
That's where I got into getting involved in a bigger level as far as helping to organize and helping to write policy, but definitely lend my opinion to people who could take it higher and hopefully shape the direction of the way this country is going. And I still seek to do that. I believe that at the end of the day, based on our system of governance, the government's role is to write legislature or policy, or to draft it and to pass it.
Right.
That is their role. And then it's up to the judicial system to enforce it. We have a breakdown on both sides, which is unfortunate. Why do we have a breakdown on both sides? We keep electing inept people. Or we keep electing people who tell us they're going to look out for us and then don't, so we keep believing in the lie. And when they get in there, they just don't perform the way they should. They perform maybe for their own self-interest or for the interest of those that they know are going to keep them in the right place. And so to break that cycle, I felt that you need a multi-pronged approach. In 2012, when the F&M lost, I took a trip. I jumped on a boat and sailed the East Coast for 8 months, all right? Got away. I'd already begun to think that a program where Bahamians could experience the beauty of the Bahamas and to expose them to what opportunities lie in the Bahamas would be one way to approach opening the minds of young people, taking them away. My parents were missionaries for a while growing up, and we lived in the U.S., where I got to go to different museums, aquariums, got to see the Capitol in the U.S. and all this other, to me, great, awe-inspiring stuff that stuck with me. And it made me appreciate the struggle that the U.S. went through at that young age. I learned American history before I learned Bahamian history. So when I came home, I tried to understand why there was such a disconnect between young people and history. And I think the age of our country had something to do with that, but also that young people just are not engaged. You can't hop in a car in Nassau and drive to Abaco to the lighthouse. You can't hop in a car in Nassau and drive down to Big Major Key and see the pigs in Exuma. Only a certain kind of Bahamian or a certain class of Bahamian gets to enjoy a lot of these things.
But that's viewing and appreciating the current beauty of the country. What about history? You think why do you think they're so disengaged? Because I don't think we do a good job of telling our history. No, I don't think it's a priority.
We're sticking, and I'm not an educator by any degree, but I know what I studied. I did history in high school here in the Bahamas. I did social studies as well in high school and elementary here in the Bahamas when I moved back. And we are definitely Eurocentric in a lot of what we try to educate.
Right.
Columbus was definitely more of the focal point. The pirates was more the focal point. Even though those played a big role, I would have loved to have learned about the families in the Bahamas that are still big, wealthy families that engaged in shipwrecking or rum running.
Or even politics. I mean, recent politics, like majority rule, all these things we speak about, but we don't really put into the school systems.
You have to be doing history, I think, in grade 10, 11, and 12 to ever touch those. I think those are things that should be taught as early as grade 7, 5, 6. Maybe that's changed. Maybe that's changed since I've been out of school.
Is that an elective or?
No, I mean, history is an elective. So if you didn't choose history, then you're not going to learn this. Right. So, I mean, it did confuse me. Some people are like, oh, I never learned this in school. I'm like, well, I did learn about Sir Milo. I learned about all these other, Sir Randall and all these other things in history. But the emphasis on them is minimal.
Right.
And I think that our history books, even very few, if not any of them, are written here by Bahamians, although we have those that can do it. I think by the time you go to COB would be the first time you would read maybe something by a Bahamian. I could be wrong. I know that there's some people going to chew me up for this, but I know the books I used in school were not written by Bahamians.
Right.
I had to go get other books and read and learn my history. Thankfully, my parents and my grandfather on my mother's side specifically, who some people may know, his name is Del Cartwright, lives in Grays, Long Island. He's a comedian and a historian. He loves history. And so in the summers when I spent time with him, that's where I really learned a lot about Bahamian history. And from his perspective, he lived through it. He's going on 96, I think, 95 or 96. Wow. So he's been here. He's seen it. He can tell you when the first cars came to the Bahamas. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that intrigued me. Doesn't mean everyone's going to be interested in it, but it gave me a better appreciation for where we've come as a country.
Yeah, and I mean, I think those things are important, and it's good to have context, because I did an episode a few episodes back where I interviewed my grandfather and my uncle. It was like 3 generations. He is going to be 85. My cousin is going to be about 50, and I'm 32. So it was 3 different perspectives, and it was right after independence. And what I was seeking to do was, because like people our age, right? We feel as though, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, we feel as though the country has not moved forward in recent times by no extreme leaps. We feel like things have been very stagnant throughout our lifetime. I don't know if you share those sentiments, but that's how I feel.
I can understand why people say that, but I think that they need to understand that although the government could assist in making it easier to do business or for entrepreneurs to start up something, politics is not a fast game. It's not a game of now.
But I mean, I'm talking about. I mean, and we could go to simple things like road traffic. You still have your name on the disc on the front of the car. You're still writing it up by hand. Like simple things that have not changed.
For a 43-year-old country,
yes,
we think that's ridiculous.
Yes, and especially
when in reality, that's probably the reality in many other countries.
But I mean, existing within the climate in which we exist, with the technological advances that we have, it seems like it's ridiculous to still be operating the way we operate.
And I don't want you to feel like I'm defending them. I'm just saying that the reason why, the reason why it's still that way is you have 5-year terms, right? Men and women who get shuffled a lot. And it's really the PSs that are running these departments.
And I learned that recently.
Yeah, PSs run. You want to be an effective minister of anything, especially a cabinet minister, you better have a great relationship with your PS or forget about it. They decide what goes on in those departments. And no matter who you appoint to those departments, as an MP, you might give a job to your cousin, niece, nephew, uncle, aunt. the PS has the final say.
Right.
And so there are plans in the different ministries for many different facets of Bahamian society as far as infrastructural development, technological advancement, but it's all introduced in their timeline. And that timeline is not about to be sped up by anyone. It would be the same as trying to go to the judicial system and saying, listen, we need to speed up the rate at which we are processing people with exactly what you have right now. Or we're going to, the FNM did this, we're going to give you 2 courts or 3 courts to specifically deal with XYZ so that the process moves faster. Has the process moved that much faster? Not so much. It's sped up a little bit, but the reality of what I'm trying to get to is these things take time. For us to introduce any kind of technological event, let's say digital voting. Let's say digital voting in this country, right?
Right.
From what I see, we would need to hire either an outside firm or we'd have to develop a new branch of the government to be responsible for not only coordinating and programming and coding everything that we would need, but also to transparently conduct the electoral process without anything being tampered with, fooled with. We had a referendum where I think the results are still pending, or the official results came out 7 days later. I think they came out.
Yeah, it was
but they
very
came out late.
Very late.
That's unheard of.
Yeah.
Even in our country,
And
that's unheard of.
and what's even more ridiculous is that was the lowest voter turnout we ever had.
Yep.
So how can
So
you
it was-
have
it was
less
like you had-
people
exactly,
vote, but the
exactly.
results take a lot longer?
Exactly.
And these are the things that I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about the progress of the country. Simple things like this that we still are grappling with. And I mentioned that because on the episode with my grandfather, I wanted to get context and I want to get different viewers. And I learned that we did come a very long way from, if you look at his lifetime up until my lifetime. We have made great strides, but there was a short period where those great strides took place, and then it seemed to like taper off. So what I was trying to identify was, why was it only during this time we had these great leaps and then things started to taper off? And I think this goes to what we spoke about earlier, and that's when competition was injected into politics. And it stopped being about advancing the country, and it became about advancing personal agendas for power and control.
I think that definitely may have. I can't really speak to that with any kind of authority. But I do know that although it may seem as if things were done quickly in a certain time frame, I know that the groundwork or the process for those had to have started longer or before that.
But that's the thing, we're not even starting it. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
I think what we
don't have
doing,
access to it is the biggest thing, especially in these past 5 years. We don't know what this government's planning. They keep telling us
that's what I'm saying.
we're going
The
to do
agendas
XYZ.
are different.
Well, the agendas, yeah.
The agendas, when I say the agendas are different, the agenda of the people or what the people seem to want and what the government wants don't seem to be in line.
Well, let's look at Long Island in 92. When Ingram came in, Ingram promised infrastructural upgrades to Long Island and other islands as well. He opened the airwaves, all this other great stuff. It still took the better part of a decade to get roads all through Long Island, electricity all through Long Island. I'm 29, and I remember my grandparents having a generator because there was no electricity. I remember them having well system because there was no running water.
Right.
There are parts of Long Island that still have no running water, and that's not necessarily the fault of anyone. It's just these things take time.
But a lot of it got done because they made it the focus, and they said, "Listen, this is what
it was a campaign promise, and
Right.
this is what we're going to do."
And they
not just for Long Island, they did for Ragged and Rumkey
and they took
San
those
Salvador.
steps.
Yeah.
What I'm getting at is we're not even taking those steps. What I find a lot of them doing is saying, "Well, nothing happens overnight." And when you take that attitude, then it's not going to happen at all. Because you are not prioritizing it. You are not putting all of your efforts into getting it done. What you are doing is leaning on an excuse that, well, hey, these things take time, nothing happens overnight.
And when
this is
something
like the situation with the dump.
major does kick off, because from my humble opinion, government involvement, we now have a giant sitting out there in the western side of the island, unused. Now I'm being told some activity is going to start soon, and they're going to have some people moving around, probably for campaign promises. I hate to pin that to them, but at the reality, that's what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
Now, if 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people get their jobs back, great. That's a good thing. All right, I'm not going to knock that. And whoever wants to take credit for it, great, as long as Bahamians are put back to work.
Right.
But what I can't stand is that for the last 2 years, 3 years, or whatever, we've had to take a hit financially. We've had to take a hit to our economy. Reputation. We've scared away possible investment.
Yep.
We've ruined the hopes, dreams of many Bahamians.
Yep.
and you've made the quality of life for a lot of Bahamians terrible just by your own involvement.
Right.
And I think that taking ownership of that, I'm not going to sit here and say they need to apologize. I'm not that petty, but there are some Bahamians who probably want that. And to say, listen, you need to do better if you're going to govern. And whoever comes in, you must do better as well. We demand better because we deserve better in this country. I can sit here and say all day long that I believe things take time. I understand that things take time. But there are things like you're saying, and I have to agree, FOIA, sign it. Give us access.
At least.
What are you hiding?
Yeah.
Is what I'm starting to wonder now. What is it you're so afraid of us finding out? And if that is what's really going on, then you shouldn't be there. You know, if you have to hide things from me as your employer, what you doing there?
And that's crazy. And when you and especially when you frame it like that, because we are the employers. You understand? We appoint these people to.
They love to say it.
Tasks.
We're the servants of the people.
Yeah,
We're here for the people.
But what company do you know that can hire a board? The board operates, does not inform the owners and shareholders of the company of what they're doing, and the board remains. That doesn't happen.
Not a successful business, at least. No.
Exactly. It won't happen. So it's crazy to me that we continue to do these things. But you said earlier also that I wanted to touch upon. You said that we elect inept individuals. And I have this feeling we have an inept population. Politicians are a direct reflection of society. These people come from us. We put these people there. So I personally don't feel that we as a nation are equipped to vote properly.
Well, the point I was trying to get at there, I'm not going to go so as far as saying we have an inept population. We definitely have some serious issues with our education system that are reflected in.
I mean, well, let's look at. I'm sure you were quite active during the referendum process, right?
Yes.
Let's analyze the reasons and the dialogue, the discourse that you heard throughout that process.
Yeah.
Do you feel that these people are capable? Generally speaking, of course, you're going to have your people that are people, you know, just generally speaking. Do you feel as though the general population, based on our education levels, the way we have been socialized, you said that the kind of Christians that you see here, and these aren't the kind of Christians that you would, you know, I guess credit as being, I don't know, real Christians or the Christians that you experienced through your studies?
I'm not going to speak to whether they're a real Christian or not. I'm definitely going to say that the things that they value do not definitely line up with what I value.
And this is what I'm saying. Going through all of that, do you feel as though this population, the way we are right now, is capable of electing the right people to do the job that's best for the country?
If we're going to use history as our marker, then I would have to say no. I'd have to agree with you. But I believe that there are some very qualified, educated Bahamians who are afraid to get involved in politics.
I do as well.
That to me is also a part of the problem.
I agree. But you understand why.
Well, yeah, I do. I definitely understand why. They're not willing to stoop to the level. They're not probably financially able to or willing to spend their money on that kind of outlet. And then if it's only them, then how successful can you actually be?
And then again, like me personally, right? I don't think the people where we are as a country are ready mentally to elect the right people. We have now been.
I think if we use that train of thought, here's my hesitance with that. If we continue to think that way, then unless we take measures to change that,
but that's what I was going to get at. Yeah, that's what I'm going to go with.
Then what is your alternative? Because if your alternative is to say, well, we're not going to run anyone good until we've better trained people.
I would never say that. No. I would because I support someone that I believe is a change. You understand? Independent candidate, young candidate, and that's all for human rights, the rights and protection of the weak of the society. You understand? That's someone
which is where the PLP say they started.
Right.
That's their whole MO according to them. But we're like, I don't know. Let's take our prime minister, for example, right? He definitely enjoys being prime minister. He loves saying it a lot.
You think so?
Listen. Anyway, let me behave myself. But we look at the area. We look at the area that he has presided over for. He says he's going on 40 years.
Yeah, 40 plus.
40 years now. Maybe he wasn't in Farm Road the whole time, but let's say 20 years. You've been in there. Why is it when I drive through Mason's Addition or McCullough Corner, people are still living the way that they are? All right, and then why is it that the only idea that's come forward from leader of the opposition in my opinion, amounts to a bunch of nonsense.
Okay.
All right? It's not going to work.
Okay.
That's been one of my biggest frustrations with him.
Okay.
If you truly were about the advancement of people,
Mm-hmm.
if you truly were about bettering their quality of life, this, that, and the other, instead of installing a pump, why not help to row by row, street by street, block by block, upgrade the infrastructure? Not necessarily to their homes, but to the surrounding areas.
Mm-hmm.
Why haven't we opened community gardens with government sanction from the Ministry of Agriculture where people are able to grow and feed themselves? Why haven't we introduced smarter libraries in these communities where the students are able to access the internet and all other resources that they should have? Where are they? I used to go to the library here off of Mackey Street by the archives in high school because I wanted a quiet place to go and study. I visited the other day just for old time's sake, and the books are on the same shelf in the same location, and nothing has changed.
Mm-hmm.
That can't be if we're serious about the advancement of the country.
Okay, but if we do these things, do you think that the people will not only utilize but maintain the things that are placed there? Because I feel as though infrastructure is good.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing against infrastructure. I think those things you put forth are all great ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But I personally believe in building people more than things, because you build people and people build things. You understand? So I think our focus needs to be more directed on the people, empowering and educating people so that they can empower themselves to improve these communities. Because let's be honest, you put nice things in the ghetto, what could happen to the nice things?
Nice, durable things can last, but I understand where you're trying to
go.
go.
It's the mentality I think we have to work on.
This is where I commend Pastor Dale Moss and the other members of the Northeastern Pastors Alliance. I think they've renamed it recently. But they have started an after-school program where students can come and get access to the internet. It's on the eastern side of the island. They have 10 centers spread out through various communities that need it. Not a lot of people know that's going on.
I didn't know.
It's not, the government sanctioned it, I think, 2 years after they started. And they made a big hullabaloo in the House, but it's already been going. People like that, I think, need to be more encouraged, supported, and that's where I will commend my MP. I'm in the community. He not only assists with that, or assists as he can with that, but we've run a summer school reading program in Montague every summer for the entire 4 years Richard has been in there. Okay. And our students just took a field trip out to the Down to Earth farm and learned about agriculture and all this other stuff. So there are small pockets of things going on where I agree with you. You need to educate and expose and give them that. Their reading grades have gone up. Their reading comprehension has gone up, especially students that participated. Okay. And they do know how to take care of good things with the right direction. We take them up to people's houses and let them use the pool, and we teach swimming and all this other stuff. But they need that direction. At the same time, though, if they don't have access to resources where the things come in, then it doesn't matter what all I put into someone. If he doesn't have access to resources to then take it further, then you still have a disconnect. Right. So I think we're having a heated agreement in that you need to do both. You can't. Yeah. And that's where I started telling about the story. I jumped on a boat and I went sailing. While I was away, I saw a Facebook post for this really cool idea called Meetup at Starbucks. I was like, oh, this looks cool. Good friend of mine from school, Travis. And the idea was for Bahamians to come together and share ideas and then hopefully help each other make the ideas a reality. Fast forward now a couple of years. From that, I was able to get plugged into the community, and I got a lot of assistance in getting an idea that I wanted off the ground called Bahamas Revisited, where we take students from Nassau to the Out Islands and we expose them to what's out there. We've shifted our direction right now a little bit in that instead of just taking students from anywhere, we're taking students from select nonprofit groups. Okay. So it's now an incentive program for them to be actively involved in beach cleanups, good grades in school, student Christian movement, junior achievers, Kiwanis, all these other things. And that as being active nation building, because that's what a lot of those programs are doing, YME, Nikita Shilro, teaching them about the importance of conservation and protecting what we have and all this other stuff. We hope that by partnering with groups like this, we then are able to take it a step further and expose them to all school year you learned about XYZ, you learned about why this is important. We're going to now show you what you were being taught. We're going to take you to Hawksbill and show you where we had massive forests for a while until they were all mined out. We're going to take you up to Abaco and show you where a lot of the boat building began. And in Long Island, how Mac Nozzo is still building boats for regatta racing and the concepts behind all of that. We're going to show you.
And see all of these wonderful things that you can do outside of politics and the church.
Yep.
So your view has changed when it comes to the angles that you can take to build a better nation.
These are things that I'm doing until for me to, I still maintain that for any kind of serious changes, overarching changes, for the country, it needs to come from the government. It needs to come through your policy writing. Now, I could form a group together and we could push for it. That's already begun. You have several groups out there fighting. But until you get an MP that not only believes in the people for real, and wants to advance the country in a real positive way, I don't think you're going to see these big changes that we would like to see. What you're going to get is a lot of, I was afraid to lose my job, so I didn't tell you about the life-threatening leak in my constituency.
Right.
That is utter nonsense.
Utter nonsense.
We're going to get a lot more of my girlfriend. I have to slap her around a little bit because that's the way that's what she likes. It's ridiculous.
Yes,
that's what we're going to get.
But what's even scarier is that the people that support these people. Because you still have people that not only support but defend them. You know what I mean?
And we saw that in the referendum. You talked about the referendum about women's rights or gender equality a while ago. Two things I think killed it. Frustration with the government and fear. A lot of fear.
Basically.
And fear prongs out into many other things. Fear prongs out into lack of knowledge of this topics.
You could say
I'm not going to say it because they're going to kill me for it, but lack of knowledge to real issues.
See, and here's the thing, Stephen.
That fear also, because there were some very intelligent people who understood all these sides of the argument.
Hold on, but Stephen, I want to get this in. I want to get this in, Stephen. I want to get this in. Don't dance around. I want to get this in. Bahamians seem to have a problem with the definition of words. Listen, people, ignorance is not necessarily a bad thing. We all are ignorant.
To some degree, yeah.
Ignorant is just a lack of knowing. You understand? None of us know everything. So if you don't know something, you are ignorant to that thing that you do not know. It is not the end of the world if someone calls you ignorant. You understand? And it seems like we are so
Don't ever get in politics.
Yeah, wait, listen. Hey, you see me get in politics, I could be who I am, and that's just me. I don't care. If you vote for me, that's cool. If you don't, that's cool too. Because I don't need it. But I think we need more honest, upfront people in politics and not people that are just going to tell you what you want to hear so you could vote for me. Because we've been getting that all of this time, and you see where's led us to. So we need more upfront, frank, honest people, and not just upfront and frank, because a lot of people would call Leslie Miller and some other people upfront and frank. You understand? So it's not just being that, but who are genuinely for the people and genuinely for the progress of the nation. You understand? And we got to stop nitpicking at these stupid little things that we pick at, so just to discredit somebody we don't like or because they're not for our party. And I think it's that ridiculous blind loyalty we have where we just overlook the things that are going to benefit the country as a whole in order to just suit our personal preference.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of petty politics. I would agree with that. The PLP brought this in, so we can't continue it. We don't want to look
ridiculous.
like we're supporting that. The FNM brought this in, so we don't want to continue it.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of, the perception is definitely there that there's a lot of petty politics. And the point I was trying to get at was this. You have some very intelligent, educated Bahamians that if they were to join up in whatever party, they could make some serious, positive, lasting changes in this country. I don't necessarily believe independent is the best way to go unless you are from that community and have a long history in that community. I say that, I use the example of my uncle again. He ran in Long Island against an incumbent, FNM, and he won. Some will say because there was no PLP contender, so the vote really wasn't split. I will suggest it's because he was 40 years and educated in Long Island. He was the principal for one of the leading high schools in the Bahamas for a long time, and a lot of people respected him, so his reputation carried him. The reality for independence, and this is where me and, let's say, Ternille would disagree, you might have 100,000 people that like you. You might have, and I'm being overly generous, let's say you have 5,000 people that like you. All 5,000 of those people are not going to live in the constituency you run in. You'll be lucky if 30 of them live in the constituency that you want to run in. 30 people can't win you an election.
No.
They can't.
But that speaks, but to me, that speaks to the problem itself.
I agree.
And, and another thing is, what I want to start doing and what I'm going to start doing with myself is I'm going to stop using these competitive terms whenever we speak politics. So like to say he won an election or won his seat or we will win the general election. I'm going to refrain from using those terms because that puts it in a competitive light. And we need to get competition out of politics because it's not a competition. We hear beating up on each other.
It
and
should be
who's
about
suffering?
the issues. I
You
agree.
understand?
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
We all suffer.
So here's what I maintain still, and I think we've had this conversation at a Shift the Culture meetup. I don't care what organization Gregory joins. I don't care if you join F&M, DNA, or PLP. Gregory and I can have a conversation.
Yes, and that's what we need.
Let's say Gregory becomes prime minister. I know I can hit Gregory up on Facebook and be you talking foolishness. Like, what is this all about? Or listen, good job. If there's anything I can do to help you, let me know. We can have that conversation. That might be very idealistic. That might be even naive of me to think. But I believe that if we get more people that are about this country's progress and not their own personal advancement involved in all political formats, that the country can then move forward.
Shouldn't we should be idealistic.
You can't do the same, but reality has to set in at some point.
No, I'm not seeing that's the thing, and we spoke about this off air.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to ignore the gray area. Because you are idealistic does not mean that you do not take reality into consideration at all. You can be idealistic and still have reality into consideration and adjust your strategy based on the realities of the situation, but maintain your idealistic view so that you know where you want to go and how to approach getting there, understanding the realities of the situation. So I really don't like when people are so polarizing. It's either this or this.
Yeah.
You understand? And if you idealistic, then you ain't realistic. Or if you realistic, you ain't idealistic.
I can see where you're coming from. I think the frustration some people have, like myself, I consider myself to be a realist. The problem you'll have is when you're trying to, in real life, real time, address an issue, an idealist. Not talking about you, but there's been scenarios where, let's say we're trying to come up with a solution for something and everyone's having a serious contribution to it. And then you have that one person out there, it's like, well, what if we did it like this? And I'm thinking about a certain member of our society right now that loves to call in the radio talk shows. He has a very long last name, starts with W. Drives me insane. We're having a serious conversation about what we would like to do for real in this country.
Right.
And then you come out of outer space with what sounds great. This all sounds good, but it's nonsense in reality. And that's where I get frustrated sometimes.
Well, I think, and again, I just think, and calling yourself a realist, to be honest with you, here's how I feel about realists.
Yeah.
If the world consisted of realists, we wouldn't have cars, we wouldn't have telephones, we wouldn't have airplanes, we wouldn't have computers, because none of these things existed within a time. The reality was that these things were not possible. It took idealists to see these things before they existed and then put the necessary action into place to bring them to fruition. So there's a place for both. And I hate when people feel, oh, you idealistic or you realistic. No, listen, we all have to work together. You as a self-proclaimed realist and me as you refer to idealist, we have to work together. Okay, here's my vision. I know this doesn't exist, but this is what I see for this country and this is where I feel we need to go. You say, okay, Greg, that sounds good. Here's the reality of the situation. And we have a discussion and we come to a common ground and say, okay, based on the realities that you have put forward and the vision that I have, this is how we can approach starting to get to this point. And I don't think we have those conversations, which is why we maintain or remain stagnant in this country. It's just that you have a bunch of realists saying
I think you and I are definitely on the same page in that. I would definitely say that. I think that you are an idealist, but you still do operate in reality. I think I'm speaking more of individuals who never want to come to reality.
Okay,
so they want that idea to happen tomorrow.
I got you.
They want that now. Why hasn't this been done yet? This should be done now. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way.
And a lot of those people just, and I'm sure you feel the same way, a lot of those people just want to talk.
Oh, yeah.
They just want to talk.
They want to be heard. And the unfortunate part is a lot of Bahamians are giving them the ear. And they're like, oh, this makes sense. Why isn't it this way?
And mind you,
why isn't our 43-year-old country as technologically advanced as a 300-year-old country to the north?
But mind you, some things may make sense,
With the resources that they have.
It may make sense.
Some of it in a different time, definitely. And not that we can't work towards it, because I definitely agree with you that, let's say I have an idea where for Bahamas Revisited, I would love to have an actual cruise just for the Bahamas. I can go to Europe and I can cruise on the lakes and rivers and streams there on beautiful boats. Why don't we have that in the Bahamas for your everyday Bahamian?
See, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You are not a realist, Stephen.
I am to a degree.
I
like that idea.
No, but listen.
Let me clarify that.
Go
I like
ahead.
that idea, and that idea is out here. And then the realist says, okay, for that to happen now, by this year, you need to have done X, Y, Z. By this year, you need to do X, Y, Z. And that's where I think you and I agree.
No,
Because I think you would operate like that as well.
I get it. But
You're an entrepreneur in the Bahamas.
But here's
You're
my
the
point.
real idealist.
No, I get it. Here's my point.
Yeah.
No one, well, let me not say no one.
Yeah.
Most people aren't either realists or idealists. There's a mixture.
Mm-hmm.
There's a mixture. Because if you were a straight realist, you wouldn't even have that idea. You wouldn't even conceive that.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't exist. It's not a reality. And if you are a realist,
fair enough.
you
I
wouldn't see it.
get
So,
where you're going.
Yeah,
I get where you're
you
going.
have
I
a
get where you're
mix.
going.
Now
I think you're
may,
speaking to the issue in the country then. We have individuals in society who tend to end up in government that are of a certain mindset and mind, or they're a certain frame of mind. And then you have individuals like us who are on the outside looking in, trying to either figure out how did you get to that mindset and what can we do to avoid that, or how do we get people in there that go through the same things that they went through but still end up doing good for the country. A lot of people knock Hubert Ingram. Hubert Ingram is a product of the Progressive Liberal Party. He says so himself. He says he's more PLP than some of the PLPs currently.
Than the leader.
Than the leader. All right? He's willing to admit that. And I cannot imagine what he had to walk through to get to where he was. Right? And I don't want to.
Right.
But the reality is he did a lot of good for this country.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, he's not perfect. He did a lot of good.
And I don't like when people say that. You know what I mean? I'm not perfect. We're not perfect. We get it. We understand that.
It needs to be said, though, because if you don't say it, oh, well, you think the F&M's perfect or this, that, and the other. And I look at a man like, let's say Perry even. Perry, I can't necessarily point to anything that I think that he can take credit for that has positively influenced. I'm speaking from a position of ignorance. Ignorance. He may very well have done a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some people that are going to jump on me and say, well, he did X, Y, Z.
Right.
And great, if that's the case. You know, I think the PLP's major advancements came under Pindling, and I don't think anyone would argue that for the country. I think for the majority of them, they came under him, and you got to give him his credit. You know? I look at a man like Sir Cecil, based on what history has taught me. He was a man about the people, for the people, and he had a lot of really good ideas about this country. Couldn't win, so that's the downfall, you know. And Sir Kendall even, they all had their issues, but they all had ideas about where they want this country to go, and they knew how to get it there. What we have now in this country is, because of the technology, because of the access to information, because of all this other stuff, I think you have a growing populace where we see what's being done out there. We look at Trudeau and we're like, oh, wow, that's impressive. Why don't we have him? Why can't he be here?
Some of us.
You know, some of us. Yeah. Some of us are like, he need to keep that foolishness over
there. If you ask
there.
me, most people look at Trump and be like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you got some people. I have family members who man, Trump is the best thing since sliced bread. But they're looking at everyone else and they're comparing us to everyone else instead of taking into account that 43 years ago, everything went through London, England, everything, you know. We are still finding out who we are as a people. Right. And unless we begin to address that in a real way, we're going to still have that problem 20 years from now. I don't care how nice our roads are. I don't care how much access to information or anything we have. If we don't start investing in people and exposing them to not only the world, but the Bahamas and what they have here, we're going to be in the same circular crab syndrome.
I agree.
20, 30, 40, 50 years from now.
I agree. And I mean, we can wrap up in a minute, but I got to touch on something before we go. Now,
oh Lord,
that's the fun part. You say earlier that you will support your MP if he runs again.
Yep.
Please let us know who your MP is.
My MP is Mr. Richard Lightbourne.
Now, we all are aware of some comments that Mr. Lightbourne would have made at a F&M convention that has recently passed that had people in an outrage and had people all up in arms. How do you feel? And knowing he said that, you say you still would support him if he runs. Now, how or why would you lend your support to someone that has suggested sterilization by the government, mandatory, based on his personal beliefs? why do you see yourself supporting someone with these views and saying the things that he said?
Because I know him, and because I know what he actually said. Now, you threw out
We all know what he said.
No, you threw out some assertions. You said that he was pushing for mandatory sterilization of women who are unwed to have their tubes tied.
Yes.
All right? That is not what he intended. That's not what he said.
What did he say? Because I'm pretty sure I heard the audio and I have it in my phone.
I know.
Please tell
a lot
me
of people
again.
have access to the audio. He said that as a country and an F&M government would seek to adopt measures that other countries have done, like, and he listed one example. Now, should he have given that example?
But is that
no. Give me opportunity. Give me an opportunity. Give me an opportunity. Because I'm not gonna spend too much time on this at all. Was he the wrong messenger? Absolutely. Was the message he gave wrong? Absolutely. Especially the way it came across. Mm-hmm. Now, I know Mr. Lightbourne. I've been with him. I've campaigned with him. I've been down in certain communities with him 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning with a grieving mother because her son just got gunned down in the street. Or I've been with him. I've been there. I know what position he's coming from. He is never suggesting, and he would never intend to suggest, that the government should mandatorily mandate that a woman's tubes be
But that's
tied.
what he suggested.
Please read it again.
That's what. But what I'm gonna do.
Please read
what
it
I'm
again.
what I'm gonna do.
And we can pick it apart and dissect it.
Yeah, but what I'm gonna do
I will
is
point to two things.
Go ahead.
One, he came out and apologized because he said the criticisms he received were justified.
I think he only apologized because of the criticism.
No.
I don't think he would.
Greg.
If there was no backlash, I don't see him apologizing because here's the thing. You went up there and you said it. You obviously feel this way. This is how you feel. For you to go on a public stage like that and to say this is how you feel.
What?
Now, the only reason I see you apologizing is because there was a backlash and you have learned that people ain't into that. You understand? If there was no backlash, I find a hard time believing that he would have. What would he apologize for? If there was no backlash.
When the backlash started, I'm sorry to even say before the backlash started, a group of us got together and said this needs to be addressed because all of us know this is not what you intended to say. One, he intended to say that every Bahamian woman, married or single, and every male should have access to the same reproductive services that other Bahamians have access to because they have the resources to do it. There are women in other countries that line up to have their tubes tied because they want to. Is that the only service? No, there's other ways. Men can get snipped. Contraceptive devices can be more readily available. So I would suggest that, one, those who took grievance to it, and rightly so, take more time to understand where he was really trying to come from, and not take one statement or one phrase or one paragraph and run with it, because none of us would want that to happen with anything that we do. I'm fairly confident that's a fair assessment.
Well,
no one wants to be judged based on one utterance.
No, I agree. I agree.
So take time to hear him out. And then I've been inviting Shift the Culture for the last 2 years now to join us at Dr. Allen's Kemp Road meetings on Mondays, where Mr. Lightbourne is present every Monday. He brings the food for the 30, 40 plus people that come. And he is there listening to grieving mothers, former gangsters, people just trying to make ends meet.
Okay.
And saying, we need access to certain things, Mr. Lightbourne.
Okay.
We need access to this. If you would notice that immediately after all of this mess blew up, certain people came to his defense. Who were they? His constituents.
Okay.
Female constituents with numerous children came to his defense, saying, if I had access to XYZ, maybe I would have taken that. He never, ever, and I know the man. Okay. I know how broken up he was about it too.
Okay,
he never.
Basically, what you're saying is, it was not his intent to make it mandatory. 2 children, you ain't married. Get clipped.
If you are white, if you are black, if
optional.
You are rich, if you are poor, you should have access to the same
so
reproductive
he was talking
services.
about access.
Exactly.
Okay, but what I'll do is I'll attach the audio and we'll let the listeners be the judge based on what he said. We'll let them be the judge.
It is also necessary for us as a nation to consider adopting the lead of several countries in the world, which result in unwed mother having her tubes tied after having more than 2 children, which would in the end result in fewer children being born. The state should not have the burden of paying for the upbringing of children. By adopting such measures, there would be less classrooms needed in the future, less persons coming out of school every year seeking employment, and would also result in the mother of these children being able to live a better life, not having to bring up so many children.
But I get it. I understand. I
Yeah.
asked the question, you answered, and I get it.
Trust
You're
me,
looking at
trust
him
me.
in totality
In
as
totality.
opposed to this one instance.
Did he say
which
the
is only
wrong
fair.
thing? Did he say the wrong thing?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
which is only fair.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I respect you for that, which is only fair. You shouldn't judge somebody based on
Nope.
one instance. No one wants to be judged
And then,
for one.
and then when you are ready, and those who are ready, who want to kill him and take him out and make him resign,
Right.
walk with him in his community and listen to what people have to say.
Okay.
Because look at some of the things they said about him.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, a lot of these people making noise, they ain't there for us. He is. They've never been there for us.
Right.
But he has been.
Okay. Well.
Would I, Stephen Cartwright, encourage or support or push for mandatory anything? No. That's not what this country's about.
Okay.
Ever. Ever.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
anyway.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to go into some more stuff, but I do have a meeting I have to go to. I have to
Fair enough.
meet the viewer space. So we're gonna have to wrap this episode up. It's been a great discussion, wonderful discussion. I learned a lot about you, Stephen. I had
Good.
some other
Some
thoughts about
assumptions.
some assumptions about your position. But this is why, and see, this is the thing. Here's the thing, people. I like to have conversations, right? We all naturally you're gonna have assumptions if you see certain things or hear people say certain things. But you shouldn't put together a judgment on a person based off of that. Have conversations. And I think that's what's missing in this country is that we don't have the necessary conversations to come to an understanding of each other. You understand? Because I could have run with assumptions and I would have been completely incorrect. But the right thing to do is to have the conversations. And at the end of the day, we don't have to agree on everything.
I
We
agree.
can disagree.
Yep.
You understand? But
In
we
a mature
now,
way,
yes,
and we can still work together.
Yes, most
I have
definitely.
no problem holding hands with the PLP to build this country.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, once we have the same mission in mind, there should be nothing stopping us from working together to see that that mission is accomplished. So we just want to have these progressive conversations to progress the country into the place we see it should be, because there's a lot of potential, like you mentioned earlier. So much potential, but we're not meeting it because we're just staying in our own corners. We're picking our teams, and we're riding hard for our teams and ignoring everybody else. So let's continue to have these conversations. Once again, Stephen, I want to say thank you for taking the time to come
Yeah,
and
man.
have this discussion.
Thank you.
It was wonderful. And until next time, folks.
Thanks for the cookies.